Yeah, Mark and I are at the Dutch Tavern, an old bar,
Ah,
a pub really. It's really a pub. Wouldn't you call this a pub?
I'd say so. This is nice. Good atmosphere for a small pub.
Yeah, they don't have hard liquor. You know, they don't serve anything but beer and wine and soda. Handicap pub fries and potato chips.
Judging from the number of people here, it's a popular place.
Yeah, especially on a Friday night. We just wrapped up a week-long class.
Our biggest class ever.
Yeah, well, maybe combined. Absolutely, this is our biggest Carl and Mark class. Our biggest public class. I've done private classes that were bigger.
Yeah.
Ah, the beer
Get
is
some
here.
black and tan.
That would be me.
There you go.
And you did it right too.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a classy place. They know how to make a black and tan here.
Right.
Yeah. Cheers.
That's right. So we're toasting to a good week.
And, came down to have a beer and just chat. So we wanted to include our loyal fan base in the conversation.
That's right. We thought we'd kill a few brain cells, but only the weak ones.
That's right. And what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, really, isn't it?
That's right.
According to Nietzsche. So
That was Joe Nietzsche.
Joe Nietzsche, yeah. So it was a challenging class. We had 20 people in the main section, and you had 8 on your side, or 7.
One guy didn't show.
One guy didn't show up. That's right. A good mix of intermediate level VB6 and ASP programmers.
Right. I had one advanced student.
Yeah, I actually had a couple of guys who had already been doing VBNet, but they wanted to fill in, they wanted to fill in the holes and fill in the gaps.
And that's the feedback I got from the advanced student, is the class she thought was very valuable because it answered a lot of little questions she had.
Right. Well, anyway, this isn't gonna be an hour-long ad for our classes, but we had some people in the class who were doing different things with .NET, and one of them was really interested in the web services aspect, but was very on the fence whether he should be using remoting or web services, and I took quite a bit of time to explain, the pros and cons of each. And we had a nasty bug that I found in Visual Studio. Well, not in Visual Studio, in the .NET Framework 1.1, having to do with data sets and row errors and things. And we had installed the hotfix on all of these machines. So somebody told me that when they tried to do what I did in class that worked, that they couldn't get it to work, and they knew that they weren't doing anything wrong. And I said, well, actually, as a matter of fact, you're experiencing a real bug.
That's right, missing the hotfix.
And we have a hotfix for you. I love black and tans, especially when they're poured correctly.
And that one is. That's a nice separation.
Yeah, gotta use a spoon.
Guinness on top, and
some lager on the bottom, an IPA, or in this case they use Bass. Harp is traditionally used, of course. You could use either.
So yeah, I had had an interesting demo that I did for the class this week.
Oh yeah?
That I was going to tell you about. Yep, I was going to wind up doing an asynchronous web service.
Oh, right.
That's right. And I had not done the same demo that Carl usually does, so got, right about through 90% of it, almost to the end.
And we had just gone over it the night before.
We had just gone over it.
We spent, actually, to be fair, we had spent considerable time the night before just making sure that we had all the demos right. So.
That's right. So I felt like I had it down, but after a long day of teaching, you can forget something once in a while.
Yeah.
So I forgot to do one thing. And I got to the point where I said, now watch this, let's look at the grid, and ta-da, there's the data.
Nothing. You could hear crickets, right?
Yeah, I could hear crickets. So, being kind of stubborn, I decided to debug it myself.
Right.
Right. So, I spent about 15 minutes looking through everything in it.
Yeah.
Couldn't see it. Just couldn't see what I was doing wrong.
Right.
And finally had to revert, pull up code, take a
Yeah.
look. So you hate to do something like that, you know?
Yeah. It's
It's
true.
tough. It's tough.
But you know, somebody had mentioned that they actually enjoyed that because it showed, you know, your thought patterns and how you go about solving problems.
Right. How to debug something is right.
You know, not that we should base the whole class on the fact that we make mistakes and debug them in front of you. But I guess I can see the value in that, you know.
Right.
At least we don't just throw up our hands and say, I'll get back to you on that. I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't feel like, I'll do it during a break or something and try not to waste time, but I don't feel like I could sleep at night if I show something that doesn't work and I know I've
Sure. And
forgotten it.
I taught them the value of using Google. I pulled up Google and typed in asynchronous web service, I'm screwed, and hit search.
I guess that didn't help.
No, that didn't
No,
help.
it didn't
That
help.
didn't help. But no, the rest of the class went great.
How about that show last week with Amanda and Paul Vick from Microsoft? What a show that
man,
was.
that's right. That's right. That's late breaking news you're not going to hear anywhere else.
You know, I was so psyched after that interview. I didn't sleep, and we started the interview at 11 p.m.
Right.
because it was really 8 p.m. on the West Coast, and that was when they could do it. They couldn't do it before that. So after it was over, it was midnight, a little bit after midnight, and I didn't get to sleep until 4.
I
was
went to
just
sleep
so
about
excited.
4:30. That's right. I stayed up later than you did.
Yeah,
We're
that's
back
true.
up at 7. You know, I look like the guy in Weekend from Bernie's at the end of the day.
But it's really cool because I have a feeling that the Visual Basic is going to be taken a little more seriously now, that it'll
Sure.
really dispel some of the rumors around.
That's
I don't
right.
know where these rumors started, but they're absolutely wrong.
Yeah, one of my students this week had, practically right during his introduction, was telling the class that Microsoft had really considered originally not using Visual Basic in the .NET
Right.
platform at all.
Right.
But no, I said I don't think that's right. So we got the chance to ask the people that know,
Right.
and their response was
Yeah.
absolutely not. There's
Right.
6 million VB programmers in the world.
That's right. There's no way.
No way. It was never a consideration not to put it in.
That's right. Yeah. Not only that, but Gartner Research really, they predict C# will replace Visual Basic.NET. That's what they predict. And one thing people get confused in is because Microsoft has announced that after 2008 they will no longer support VB6. Okay,
And that's probably what they're drawing.
It's probably what they're drawing the conclusion from. Yeah.
Well, obviously a lot of misinformation
Right.
is out there.
One thing that I did during the class, one thing that I do in my ADONet day, which we spend a whole day just on ADONet, fundamentals and dataset-centric programming and NTIA. And I talked about using joins. When you use joins in a SQL select command, the command builder cannot create the insert, update, and delete queries
That's right.
for a data adapter because update, insert, delete is a one-table operation.
You have to use. You can do it with an updatable view.
That's right. So I talked about the updatable view, and I wasn't aware that Fernando Guerrero is like the only person in the world who's ever done that.
Man, Fernando is incredible. He's a SQL god.
Yeah, and that's where I learned about it, and I saw him do it in a talk, and it was great, and it works great, and he measured the performance, and it's wonderful, and I looked, somebody said, well, do you have some code samples? And of course, I don't have Fernando's samples or anything, but I figured, this was something that most people were doing when they have data adapters and views.
So he said, excuse me while I whip this out.
Yeah. While I whip this out.
Carl's the new sheriff of Rock Ridge. Or
Rock Ridge.
Red
yeah.
Rock.
No, it's Rock Ridge.
Is it Rock Ridge?
Sheriff! The Sheriff of Rock Ridge! I'll be Slim Pickens, you know. He and I share a similar physique, actually.
Maybe Slim was a programmer.
Good reference, good reference. Well, anyway, so what the hell are we talking about? I don't know. I still have half a beer here, so.
You were going to whip out an updatable view.
Yeah, so I didn't actually try to create it on the fly because there isn't enough time allocated in the class for me to just go off on a 15-minute tangent. But I did take a minute to go look. You're laughing because that's all you did.
Because that's all I did all week.
Well, anyway, so we go off on the internet, and I look and see if I can find it. I look in the user groups. I look on got.net. I look on .net 24/7. You know, I look on VB City. I look on all the places that I would go where there are threads, at least forums, you know, and news groups. I didn't look at any blogs because blogs are sort of amorphous and not as well defined. You have to figure out the interface for everything.
Yeah, we need to Google to search blogs.
Yeah, that'd
be
great.
awesome.
A bloggle.
Yeah, someone needs to write bloggle. You'll get rich if you do that.
Absolutely.
Editor's note. Since the recording of this show, we have learned that there is indeed such an animal. It's called feedster.com. Just go to www.feedster.com and you can search the blogs. We got this information from Robert Scoble. Thanks, Robert. Now let's get back to the show.
So nothing. I couldn't find it. And finally, I pulled up Outlook, and I sent off email to Fernando on Tuesday and asked him how. Now, Wednesday morning, I had a reply from him, which I printed out and gave to this person.
Cool.
And it helped her out a lot. She was struggling all during the breaks and stuff to try to do it. Still couldn't, still was having trouble, and didn't really understand what he was doing because he just sent me a little sketch, an email, so which I guess she's going to get with him.
Yeah.
I'm going to. He's definitely on our list, Fernando Guerrero, people we want to interview.
Yeah, let's give a shout out for his company. Fernando runs a company in Spain called Solid Quality Learning, and that stands for SQL.
SQL, right.
And really, he's a SQL god. He knows all about it. All the big names in the SQL world are signed up to do training.
Yeah, that's right. He's written several books on SQL Server, and he's all about .NET as well. I always pick him to do talks at Dev Connections, and he's even done this the Updatable View talk. That's where I saw it.
Yeah, he's actually a DBA that knows the developer side of the business.
Right.
And you don't often run into that, somebody that knows both.
That's right. Now, that doesn't mean that he would approve of writing VBNet stored procedures, but we'll have to see how that works.
Yeah, that's right. I can't wait to see UConn.
Yeah.
That's on my wish list.
So, this is a pretty cool place, don't you think? We got a TV in the corner. I'm sure you can hear that.
I'm sweating like a racehorse, but other than that, it's a cool place.
But you know what's cool? Like the ceiling has that British pub red leather tile, very small tiles, you know. And it's a really old place. First of all, it's called the Dutch Tavern. It's in New London, Connecticut, and it's old. It's been here for over 100 years. A favorite haunt of playwright Eugene O'Neill.
Cool.
Eugene O'Neill was from New London. There's a Eugene O'Neill Theater in Waterford, right on the beach, and they have playwright and playwright festivals and things there. You may have, I don't know if you've ever seen any of his plays, but Long Day's Journey into Night is one of his that made famous on Broadway. I think it was James Coburn, maybe. I'm trying to think. On my feet here, I can't.
I liked Coburn's work in Like Flint.
Yeah. No, Jason Robards. That's who it was, not James Coburn. I get those guys mixed up. It was Jason Robards. Well, anyway, if you look on the walls, there's pictures of him here, having a beer and hanging out. Old pictures of the city. It's really old tables and just a great place to come and have a beer and hang out when you're in New London. It's on Green Street.
Right. They have an Adams Family pinball machine.
Yes, they do. You notice the details. That's
I do. I gravitate toward the important aspects of a bar.
We got some good beers on tap over there. What do we got?
We got Guinness on tap,
Yeah, well,
which is very,
absolutely.
very good.
Absolutely. We got Harp and Cottrell, which is like a local amber. Got
Past Pale Ale.
Foster's, and we got some Coors and other stuff there. Schaefer, I think they serve too. Is that Schaefer on the end there?
I think it is.
Yeah, I've never.
You know what English guys say about Coors?
And what?
It's like making love in a canoe. Do you know why they say that?
Okay, now why?
It's fucking close to water.
We had a couple of comments that we kind of move fast, and somebody said that we should emphasize more that good typing skills are really important. And yeah, it's really true. This is an intense class. We don't
We don't mess around.
Yeah, we don't mess around.
Hey, guess what? We have a new .NET Rocks hotline right here. 877-273-4838. Call and ask us questions about .NET, and we'll be glad to answer them on the air. Even if you don't have a question, just call and give us a shout and let us know you're out there and listening. Got a suggestion, etc., you can use the .NET Rocks hotline. The number is 877-273-4838. That's toll-free in the United States. Hey, and as long as we're talking about new things, we've started selling shameless junk at the .NET Rocks website. Just click on the .NET Rocks Travel coffee mug, and you'll be whisked off to a store where you can buy lots of crap that you don't need. T-shirts, sweatshirts, coffee mugs, beer steins, frisbees, and all sorts of other goodies. Given to yourself as a reward for listening to the show, or given to a friend as a gift. All right, now let's get back to the beer. Drink up, folks. This is .NET Rocks. Don't you go away.
We got to talk to the listeners this week about the example that you were doing in class. This is like a Mobius strip or something that Carl found.
It's a very simple puzzle. You don't need to see it. You don't need to see the visual. I'll just explain it. It's like 3 lines of code, and it doesn't work the way you think it's going to work. I'll give you a few minutes to think about it. Here you go. So you put a button on a form, and I was demonstrating the add handler method and how events are handled in .NET, in VBNet, not just in .NET, but in VBNet. In VBNet, when you look at the button1_click sub that you get when you double-click the button, if you scroll all the way to the right, you'll see a handles clause. Handles button1.click. Button1.click is an event defined by the button, and that handles keyword wires up your button1_click subroutine to that event and says, this subroutine is going to handle this event. All right? It's not magic anymore like it was in VB6.
That's right.
You can actually rename button1_click to anything you want. It could be food, right?
I named mine Fred after doing like a control array. I'll do 5 option buttons.
Is that after Bill Vaughn's Visual Fred reference?
It is after Bill Vaughn's Visual Fred reference.
So name it Fred, and that button event will still fire. All right, so then I showed them, this is the design time wiring of the button click, or any event. But if you comment out or remove that handles clause at the end of the button click sub, the event doesn't fire. So I showed them how they do it in C# anyway, and you can also do this in VBNet with the add handler keyword.
Right.
So I double click on the form and I pull up form load, and I type in the following: add handler space. Add handler is one word, space. Button1.click, which is the event, comma, and then address of one word, space. Button1_click, which is the subroutine that is going to handle the button click event. You can do that in instead of, or even in addition to, the handles clause. And here's the thing I was trying to demonstrate. You can also call remove handler with the same arguments, and it will remove the handler. But there isn't just, it's not a Boolean. It's not either handling it or not handling it. It truly is adding and removing.
Yes.
So if you call add handler twice to the same button click, that button click event handler will fire twice. All right? And so I was demonstrating that, and I said, not only that, but if you want to remove the handler, you can't just call remove handler once, because there's two handlers set up for this event in the same place. You have to call remove handler twice in order to remove both of those. And if you call it just once, you're still going to get one button click.
Right.
That's what I was trying to demonstrate. Now, normally, for some sick and twisted reason, I deviated from my general demo that I do for, I don't know what it is in the back of my brain that says, hey, Carl, don't do it that way.
The little devil pops up in your shoulder.
That's right. Let's do it differently today, because, when you teach the same class over and over again, you get, a little bored with your...
That's right.
So I'm thinking, all right, I'll do this a little differently and, challenge myself and blah, blah, blah. Okay, there you go. So what I did was, in the button1_click event handler sub, I wrote a remove handler after popping up a message box that said, hi, I'm here.
Right.
So I say, hello, I'm here, or hello, world, or whatever. Then I say, remove handler, button1.click, address of my subroutine that I'm in. And I said, and what will happen here is it will remove once, and when I click the button again, it will pop up only once.
Right.
That's what I'm expecting. So I click the button, and I get two message boxes. The first one pops up, hello. I click the OK button. The second one pops up, hello. I press the OK button. I said, now if you press the button again, it'll pop up only once. When I click it, nothing happens. Nothing happens. And I thought it was a bug. I mean, this is insane. I have done this before in another way, using a checkbox, actually.
Right.
In the checkbox, I add the handler when it's checked and remove the handler when it's unchecked. And that works just fine.
Right.
But it wasn't working. Now, again, here's the behavior. You press the button once, two message boxes pop up, you close them both, and the next time you click the button, nothing happens. And I put it aside, and I put that aside, and I said, hey, I don't know why this isn't working, but I don't want to sit here and debug it in front of you, so I'll think about this, I'll come back to it, and let me just do the demo the way I normally do it. And they were satisfied with that. So then we went to lunch, and a very alert student said, Carl, that code that you wrote with the button click and all that, that is working exactly how it should work. There is nothing wrong with your code. There's nothing wrong with .NET. That is exactly how you coded it.
Right.
And I said, huh? All right, now you just think about that for a minute. You go ahead. We'll just order another beer here. I'm going to take a sip of my black and tan right here.
Good stuff.
Well,
The answer is that let's follow. If you use breakpoints, okay, if you set a breakpoint in the button click, you'll get it. Here's what happens. You have two add handlers in the foreign load. You have one in the button_click event, okay? First time you click that button, the button click is going to fire the first time, the message box pops up. And then you call remove handler after the message box goes down. Okay? So now there's only one handler. But yet, you've still fired that button click twice.
Right.
So it fires again. And the message box pops up, hello, and then the second time the remove handler is called. Remove handler is called twice.
Right.
No kidding. When I thought about that, I said, duh.
Yeah, as soon as I saw the message box, the way you had the code written, as soon as I saw the button click event,
Yeah.
the message box call and then remove handlers immediately after it.
Yeah.
Once you see the message box pop up twice,
Right.
you know it's calling remove handler twice.
That's right.
And what's funny is
But we
a couple
didn't
of
get
other
that.
right. We didn't see it immediately.
We didn't see it immediately. The whole class didn't see it. I didn't see it. I posed it to Mark. He said, no, I don't get that. I asked a couple of other people I consider experts in .NET, and they scratched their head. And it's really interesting because we're so used to in VBNet, one button click on the click, actual click action fires one event.
Yes.
That we don't think about
Right.
what's actually happening.
Right. It's a multicast delegate.
Yes, that's right.
That's exactly what it is. So this is funny too. We had a student come by when we were talking about it.
Right.
And after explaining what was going on, it still took him a while to get it.
That's right.
I mean, he really had to look and walk through it.
It was really one of those, like you said, a Mobius strip kind
It
of.
is. It is.
MC Escher kind of.
Yeah, it's an Escher wood carving.
Escher-esque coding,
Yeah. Yep. So I'm going to reuse that, shamelessly rob it, and when I talk about add handler, that's a great demo.
That's
to do.
a great demo because
great
it really
demo.
challenges you to work out, what exactly is happening.
Right.
Very good. Well, my glass is empty. How about yours?
It looks to be pretty empty. Yes.
I think I'll add get us a couple more. Every time I come to a pub like this is when I, wish I had never quit smoking. Because,
Oh, is that right?
Well, I mean, I don't like smoking. I smoked for 20 years. Yeah, I didn't. No, 10 years. I smoked for 10 years. Smoked for 10 years, and those they felt like the longest 10 years of my life, but I have now not smoked for 10 years.
Wow, what an accomplishment. That's
Yeah.
right.
But every time I come to a pub and have a beer, and chat, and
It's almost a Pavlovian response.
it's almost, it's gotta have a beer and a smoke, but and I'm glad I don't.
Yeah, I'm that way about sniffing glue. No, not really, no.
Smoking crack.
I picked a bad week to give up sniffing glue.
Okay, now that's a line from Airplane.
That's a line from Airplane. Yeah.
You can't take credit for that.
But what our listeners may not know is I love movies. I'll go to a theater to see a movie that I know I'm not going to like.
Right.
Just for the experience of going to the theater. I love it.
Sit in the air-conditioned theater and have some popcorn.
Popcorn, yes.
Watch the previews. What was a movie you've seen lately that you liked?
Oh, let's see. Well, I actually liked the new Lara Croft movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Tomb Raider.
The Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
It's the Cradle of Life. That's the name of it.
Huh. What was cool about it?
Angelina Jolie is very cool.
Okay. Back to that guy thing we were talking about before.
Well, no. I mean, not. Beside that, it's not. You're not going to sit there and be wowed over by the great story, but it's an action movie. It's eye candy. A lot of special effects.
Right.
Angelina Jolie happens to be in it, and it's a nice way to burn 2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Seabiscuit. Actually, I've heard that was a good movie.
Well, when I saw it, I was in Washington D.C. and I had actually gone to try to get tickets to Seabiscuit. I had wrapped up a seminar I was doing for Microsoft. Got back to the hotel at like 5:30.
Yeah.
I thought, I'll go see if I can catch the last matinee.
Right.
Get over there, at 6 o'clock, and I said, well, I wanted tickets for Seabiscuit. Like, we're all sold out. I said, no problem. You got a show at 8:45. I'll get that one. The guy said, no, you're not buying a ticket tonight. It was sold out.
Wow.
Every show.
Wow.
So I had to see Lara Croft. I had no choice, really.
Yeah, Todd Fonsby told me that I should bring my daughter to see Seabiscuit. It's one of those kind of movies.
Yeah, Spider-Man on a horse.
Oh man! So we finally got the Whidbey Alpha installed, right?
Yes, that's right. After it took us 2 days.
2 days.
Right. We were not in a big hurry, you see.
No.
We pop a disc in, go.
Hey, teach a class, come back the next day, pop the next disc in. But it did install correctly, which impressed me.
Yes.
I know that the installation program had some problems in the last version and the first version. and I didn't have any problems this time, so that was good. I haven't installed the help yet, and I haven't even pulled it up yet. So, I was getting we had this talk about Whidbey with Amanda, and so after what we do is we actually tape the classes a week ahead, right?
Right.
So this is the week that we actually did that we actually had the conversation with Amanda and Paul. In fact, it was Wednesday night.
That's right.
But for you, it was the last show, not last week, the last 2 weeks, right? Because we're doing 2 week shows.
That's right. It's like a time travel thing,
Yeah.
So we get caught in a paradox if we're not careful.
And oh yes, thank you very much, sir.
There you go.
Thank you, gentleman and scholar.
Yeah.
Gentleman and scholar.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what was I saying?
We were talking about how we scheduled the show,
Yeah.
and the fact that we talked to Amanda and Paul.
Right. So we were talking about, and I actually whipped out a slide together, and showed my class, what we talked about.
Right.
And they were very excited. They wanted to know everything.
Yes.
And I said, I don't, they were hammering me with questions. I said, I don't know. I haven't even installed it yet. I mean, nobody knows because there's only an alpha out. It's only a very limited program, and the stuff that they're talking about right now, they're only doing at conferences and stuff. So nobody really knows or is talking about these details.
True.
They want to know about remoting, if there was any,
Right,
security. Yeah, they want to know if there's any security in remoting, and I'm like, I don't know. And she, this woman who was asking me this smiled like, you don't know? She's like smiling like, I can't believe you don't know. How are we going to know? Well, you're going to have to wait. So it's, the burdens of knowing too much too soon, I guess.
That's right. You might turn into a stone or something.
Right, yeah.
Got to be careful.
We, of course, can't say everything we discover in the Alpha program. In fact, we can't probably say anything more than what they've already said.
Right. Well, it's nice that, even doing a show like this, we don't really say much. We get other people to say.
Well, that's right, yeah. Except that show that we did by ourselves, and this one also, but, we get to actually talk. This show isn't so much about programming as it is about having a beer with Carl and Mark.
That's right.
So,
yeah, I gotta give the listeners an update. The trainer that I talked about, apparently he listens to the show because he...
Now, wait a minute. This is on the last show we did with you and me, right?
Yeah, that's the last one we did.
You're
Carl and
talking
Mark fly solo.
Yeah, and you're talking about the guy who tried to outbid you for the
Underbid,
sequel.
right.
Yeah.
Underbid me. Yeah.
For the sequel class.
Right, so I'm talking about his ethics, and,
or lack thereof.
And if you remember, I never mentioned a name.
Right.
So he knew who he was, though. He called me up, and he told me he didn't appreciate me sharing that story with the whole world.
You didn't name names, right?
No, I never named a name.
That's okay. So how you doing, listeners? Are you driving in the car? I bet they're driving in the car. This seems to be like the popular...
Yeah, we get a lot of email about people writing
Yeah.
MP3s to CDs.
Hey, I see bubbles on your beer there. Why don't you get to it there?
Oh, that's right.
I'm beating you.
I'm busy talking.
You've been talking too much. I have to drink some more. One of the things that we don't talk about very much on the show, but I have to blow our horn here. One thing that you get in this class that you don't get in any other class is real food.
Oh, absolutely.
We take people to restaurants for lunch, and these aren't like McDonald's, the local pizza joint. We take them to the Bank Street Lobster House for hot lobster rolls on the deck. Take them to Russell's Ribs for barbecued ribs. We take them to a Thai restaurant that's incredible.
Absolutely.
We take them to an authentic Mexican restaurant for lunch. That it's not Tex-Mex, it's authentic Mexican.
Yes.
Excellent. And so we always get good comments about the break, and also taking a group of people to lunch, a bunch of developers to lunch. They all get to talk to each other about the things that they're working on. They ask me questions. It's sort of like an extension of the classroom, just in a more casual setting. And Todd does a lot of research on how people learn and what their learning styles are. Most developers learn best in a very relaxed kind of social setting. I know I do.
Yes. Well, one comment I had this week from students is, and I teach for training centers all over the U.S. Most of them have rules about during lab time. It's got to be quiet. You can't play music.
Oh, right.
Right, and we don't do that. We actually play some really cool music.
Yeah, you were
at a low volume.
You were at the Radisson this week. You were just playing CDs, but in the training center we have a DVD player, and I get concert videos, from Amazon.
Right.
I just got a pile of concert DVDs, and they last a good 2 hours.
Right, so, Grateful Dead, Steely
Dan, Eagles, James Taylor, Eric Clapton. Lots of great stuff. Santana.
Yeah.
I got Supernatural live.
Cool.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that yet.
That's great. It's a show, man. Woo. Well, anyway, so I put those on, at low volume, but you can still. Oh, David Gilmour's another one I have.
Awesome.
David Gilmour live.
Right from
Albert Hall or something like that.
Yeah, sorry, that's right. He was originally with what was the
Pink
band?
Floyd.
Yeah, Money. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So I put those videos on during the labs, and it's a good atmosphere. This is also the first class that we taught with our new machines. And,
so what a lab we have.
We have an awesome lab. We've got 20 P4 266. That's 2 gigs, 2.6 gigahertz machines with a gig of RAM, and LCD 17-inch monitors, and gigabit Ethernet. We have about 4 megabits to the internet live through an optical OC3 connection. So what else cool happened to you this week? Any interesting students working on cool stuff?
Oh, yeah. We had students that were looking at actually using web services. Remoting became of interest to them.
Yeah.
They were talking about using a service, writing a Windows service and configuring remoting. And one thing we do is we show you a pattern when we cover remoting of actually taking a DLL, hosting it in IIS. And there's some misconceptions out there where I've met developers that think if you host an IIS, you've got to use SOAP as the formatter.
That's right.
And it's not true. You can actually use a binary formatter, and it's fast. Something like, 300?
300, I've heard it as much as 800%.
Right, 300%.
Yeah, with a caveat that if you're serializing a data set and returning a data set from a function, it's going to use the XML formatter. It's going to use a serialization method that works with XML. So even with the binary formatter.
Right, that's right. And we were talking about that. They weren't going to be using data sets.
Yeah.
For what they were doing.
In that case, you get a much better performance using.
Right, and they were doing some backward stuff. The service was actually going to be gathering statistics about the machine.
Oh, interesting.
And aggregating it, sending it through a web service to a central.
Oh, that's cool.
Repository. So it was kind of reverse. It was a reverse web service.
Right.
So I thought that was kind of cool.
That is cool. I had a couple of guys in the back of the room after we went through the demo of the remoting pattern that we show you. They, it didn't look any. What we did is we actually used a business object and remote it with IIS, one that we had created on Tuesday, and we take the application that we wrote on Tuesday against that business object, copy it to a new folder, and modify it to use the object remotely.
Right.
So when you press the button to get the authors, the grid fills up the same as it did with the local object. It really doesn't look any different.
Right. Just a slight delay.
Right. And this guy said, "Well, I don't understand. What's the big deal? I mean, we have a reference to a local DLL, and then we register for remoting, and then what's the big deal?" And I said, "Okay, here's the big deal. Pull up your a command window and type ipconfig, and tell me your IP address." And he did that, and I went into my configure remoting sub where I have the URL or the URI to the remote object, and I replaced localhost with his IP address and ran it, and then boom, his data from his machine came up.
Right.
And he goes, "Oh yeah." And then of course the issue of security came up, and we talked about that. So.
Right. Security always comes up.
Now, you may not have known it, but Mark Dunn is teaching the VB.NET Masterclass in Atlanta, Georgia. That's right, he's teaching a class in November. down there at the AmeriSuites in Alpharetta, right outside of Atlanta. Actually, it's in Atlanta. Not only that, but in January, he and Marcy Robillard are teaching an ASP.NET Masterclass. So we're getting some more stuff going here, folks. And you may know of people who are in need of quickly getting up to speed on VBNet and on ASP.NET, and they don't want to learn any bad habits. Instead, want to learn some good habits and start off their .NET career in the right way. This is the best way to do it. Go from 0 to .NET in 5 days. And what else can I say? It's great. Just check out the testimonials online. We have tons more testimonials from real companies, from real people who've gone through our classes, and can't say enough good stuff about it. So thanks for listening. I know that this is a kind of a different show, and I appreciate your support of .NET Rocks. Next week, next show, we will be back with more interesting content and less beer. I'm sure you're going to like that. All right, now let's get back to the show. Right here on .NET Rocks. Don't go away, man.
That reminded me of another funny training story. Just got to share it with you. It's a short one. So I'm teaching a class at one point. It's been a few months ago. And I've got some mainframe programmers in the class. So I was going to show them how to basically get into the GAC and take a look at what's inside the GAC.
Yeah.
So we go to a command prompt and we go, type CD, Windows, / assembly. And then I tell them, okay, go into GAC, the GAC folder.
Yeah.
And I say, okay, now then type in dir.
Yeah.
And you'll get a listing, a directory listing. And one of the students went, well, I can't get a directory listing. And I thought, okay. So I said, you typed in dir? And, she said, yeah, I did. So I get up, walk over, and she had typed in DER. Dir.
Dir. Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, someone who wasn't around in the DOS days.
She skipped the whole DOS thing, yeah.
Wow.
Had to share that.
We make assumptions about, I got a good tip for the command window. If you're going into the GAC and what she would have seen if she typed dir is a listing of all the assemblies or all the namespaces of the assemblies,
each in its own
subdirectory. And if you go into, say, system.data, that's a directory, and look into another dir, you'll get another list of directories, one directory for every version of that DLL that's in the GAC. And the directory name is a sort of composite of the version and the hash code for the public key token.
Right.
And so typing CD space and then this really long cryptic number string is not a something that you want to do.
Oh, no.
So here's a tip that you can do. You can type dir space v1 star.
Right, just using star as a wildcard.
We're using star as a wildcard, or 1.1 star, whatever it is, enough to differentiate one from another.
Right.
And hit enter, and it will go into that directory.
Yeah, that's an awesome tip.
Yeah. One of those things that you're going to need if you're going to do any tooling around in the command window.
Yeah. Folks will really think you know what you're doing when you start.
That's right. That'll
cards.
impress your boss there, because your boss probably doesn't even know.
That's right. The pointy-headed boss won't expect you to use a star at the end of CD. Yeah, we should probably do this every show.
That's right. Better information through alcohol.
Yeah. But no, this is kind of the thing to do after a class is over.
Right.
Relax a little bit.
Yeah, we call it a post-mortem.
Yeah, that's right. This is a post-mortem.
We do an evaluation of what went right, what went wrong. I'll tell you what went wrong.
Okay.
We didn't coordinate enough on the restaurants that we were going to.
Lunch, yes.
And Mark had 7 people, I had 20, so there are times that we split up my class. Todd would take 10, I would take 10, and Mark would take his 7, all to different restaurants, and we wanted to make it so that we didn't put too much of you take 20 people to a restaurant, you're going to be there for a while, you know what I mean? And so we wanted to split it up with 10. So Mark and I had been up late every night just discussing the next day and what we were going to do, and it all else come up the logistics for lunch. And one night, he told me he was going to place X, and I heard place Y. So the next morning, I go in and we separate my class into two restaurants, one of which was going to the same place Mark's was. So I come up to Mark on the street corner with his guys and say, "Hey, where you going?" And he goes, "I'm going to such and such." And I said, "What a coincidence! So are we."
Right.
Well, we had called ahead, actually, and ordered ahead
Right.
so that we wouldn't have to waste time waiting for our meal. But it turned out okay, actually. They expected a large group. They had the staff to support it. And
Right. Yeah, my group was going, gee, Mark, why didn't you call ahead so
Yeah,
we don't
right.
have to wait?
It was my fault. Oops. So what is if you had to pick the coolest demo that you did in the class this week, the absolute one that got the most oohs and ahs, what do you think that would be?
Well, actually, probably the one that got the most oohs and ahs was just an on-the-fly demo that I did. We've been filling some data using a data adapter. We've been filling up some controls, and I basically told the class, you don't always have to use a data adapter.
Right.
You could use a command object directly.
Right.
And we basically rewrote what we were normally doing with a data adapter
Yeah.
by using a command object.
Yeah.
Wrote stored procedures from scratch,
Wow.
and completely duplicated it. And I guess that took about 15 minutes.
Yep.
Beginning to end.
Yeah.
And just showing them options.
And did you use the command builder, or did you actually write the insert, update, and deletes for your own?
No, we just went into the server explorer, created new stored procs, and wrote them.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that actually. I was doing an on-site for a company in Phoenix, and they had told me right up front, we don't want to use the wizards, we don't want to use data adapters, we want to fill our own data sets, we do everything with stored procs. And I ended up modifying the lab for them on the fly for Friday to go in and create a multi-dimensional, or a multi-dimensional, or maybe what's the word I want? Hierarchical.
A hierarchical
set of tables, a hierarchy of tables, and then store procedures to return the data into a data set and do the inserts, updates, and deletes themselves using data adapter-like commands, like an update command, but an update table. You pass the data table, update this table, or save the changes kind of thing. So it would have to go through and look for changes in the data set, calling get changes, or in the data table, I suppose. And then just only get the added changes, or the deleted rows, or the updated rows, and basically doing what the update command did on the fly. And it was something I didn't expect until I got there, but I managed to get that going and working for them. We actually did it together on the Thursday. And then the lab on Friday was to do that from scratch, and they were very happy that they could do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's something that sets us apart, I think, from a lot of training companies. As an instructor, well, both of us are just willing to take huge risks.
Right.
If somebody wants to see something, we may never have done it before, but we'll dive in and try to write something.
Give it the old college try.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
That's right.
And if we don't have an answer, we know plenty of people who do. That's for sure.
And that's the thing. Don't be afraid to ask someone for help.
Yeah, absolutely. I learned some of my most fundamental things about programming. I learned over a beer in a bar, talking to the more experienced programmers.
That's right.
Unfortunately, I was a quick basic programmer, and they were C++ programmers, or C programmers actually at that time.
That's right. Yeah, really, really good guys don't have such a big ego about.
That's right.
You're willing to go, I don't understand how this works.
Yep. You have to do that.
Yeah, you do.
You don't.
You
you'll
can't
kill
know
yourself.
everything.
You'll kill yourself. You'll pigeonhole yourself if you don't admit that you don't know something.
Yeah, that's right.
You have to.
Or if you're doing something the wrong way,
right.
Find out what's wrong.
That's right. Crack it open and try it.
Yeah.
I was I showed the locals and autos windows, and they really liked that, especially the fact that you could hit a breakpoint and change a value of a variable,
Right.
and then continue on. I mean, it's not edit and continue, but it's stop, change a value of a variable, and continue.
Right.
You do have that ability.
Yeah. Yeah, what they're
That got
missing
some
is,
APIs.
wanting to stop and drag the execution pointer back.
Actually,
and then
you can
rewrite,
do that. You can
right.
move the code pointer.
But I didn't finish though.
Oh, okay, I'm
And
sorry.
then rewrite a routine.
There you go.
And then go forward.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
But yes, you can drag it back and re-execute.
Right, and that's what Whidbey gives us, apparently.
Yeah,
Edit and
the
continue.
ability to edit. We've got the
Right.
continue part.
Oh, man, I'm so psyched for that.
That is going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome.
I really think that, people will come back to VB after that.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you just a little thing in .NET that I really like is the fact that when you save a project, if you've got breakpoints set,
Yes.
the breakpoint's saving it.
Yeah.
You know what I used to do, and you've probably done this before. I wouldn't use a breakpoint if I were trying to debug a big project. I'd actually use debug assert statements,
Right.
and take those out,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
if you left one in, you could compile it, and a debug assert, wouldn't affect your compiled exe.
Right.
So it's great to be able to save breakpoints.
Yeah. There's one other thing that I do in the class. That is sort of a signature of my class, I think. I get a lot of good comments on it, which is I play the What's It Gonna Be game with the objects.
Oh, I got to do that too.
In the
That was
cast.
fun.
Yeah. It's a really fun thing. It's based on a presentation that I do called So You Think You Know What an Object Is.
Right.
And I've done it at user groups and at dev connections and things like that. And essentially what we do is we take two classes, a customer class and a person class. The person class is a first name, a last name, and an email property, and the customer class inherits the person and adds a customer ID. So we talk about casting and the difference between casting value types and reference types, and we're changing the interface when we're casting reference types, and that's all we're changing. So I do this What's It Gonna Be game where I do some casting and I change some values, and then I print out a result. And I ask the class, what's the value? What's the result going to be?
Right.
And I've already taught them the fundamentals of casting, and we've done a couple of examples. And so they, we would hope they get it. And they nod their head, yeah, I get it. But it sort of points out the thinking pattern of the old VB programmer who has never had to deal with inheritance before. Not only is it a new feature, but it fundamentally changes what an object is. And when you start casting things around, you have questions about what the values are going to be.
Right.
And it's very fun. We do 3 different examples, and I even make it multiple choice for people. And invariably, when I ask who says it's going to be this, who says it's going to be that, and who says it's going to be the other, invariably we have a split.
Yeah, you get splits. That's amazing. Isn't it?
We have people who think it's going to throw an exception. We have people who think it's going to be a null value. It's really amazing.
Right, and I always ask, who has no opinion about this?
Right.
And
who doesn't care? Who wants
yeah,
to go
basically,
home? That's it.
That's right. A few people will raise their hand. I have no opinion. Thank you.
Right. Well, it appears that we've squandered an hour. And,
is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. This has been a fun show.
It sure has, and we're recording on an Arcos multimedia jukebox.
That's right. This is the same thing that I've recorded Ingo's show with at Dev Connections.
Right. And should we mention that we're going to make .NET Rocks a
bi-weekly? Yeah, we mentioned it in the last show.
Okay.
But so by now, pretty much people know. If you don't know already, we're doing this every other week from now on.
Right. Our wives are threatening to divorce us if we don't slow down.
And that's the deal. So, thank you for listening, and hey, we'll see you next time on .NET Rocks. And hey, don't let anybody push you around out there, VB programmers.
That's right. Nobody should kick sand in your face.
That's right. Stick up for your language.
That's right. Come take a class with us. We're the Charles Atlas of VB.NET training.
All right, that's enough. Good night. We'll see you next time.